Hello and welcome to my session. Happy International Translation Day. Thanks so much for being here today. If you're watching this on my channel later on, welcome back to the Freelanceverse. My name is Adrian. I'm a Swiss native German translator. I'm providing language services for the past 6 years now. Still very much enjoying it. And since 2020, I'm also leading a YouTube channel called the Freelanceverse, on which I produce one video every week about freelancing, translation, languages, being self-employed, etc. So if this kind of content interests you, make sure to head over to YouTube and subscribe to the Freelanceverse channel. I make a video every Monday, similar to this one, just mostly sit-down videos sharing what I've learned over the last years, sometimes also different things. I visit conferences, etc. So make sure to come over there and join an amazing growing community. So I was invited by ProZ today, thank you very much by the way for inviting me, to represent freelancers, right? Because I share a lot of freelancing information on my YouTube channel, so they asked me, could you please talk about representation and fears of freelancers. So I thought, how better to represent freelancers than actually involving them in this talk, right? So I took comments from my YouTube channel that came in over the last weeks, specifically talking about fears and worries of freelancers. And I'm gonna address them one by one and tell you guys how I personally would address them. I'm saying personally, and this is important, please take all the info I give with a grain of salt. I see people trying to copy my approach when it comes to approaching customers and stuff, and this will never work, right? You need to find your own creative way to do things in the industry. I can always share my subjective opinions and maybe give you the last push that you need in terms of motivation, but in the end you need to make your own experiences, of course. So let's get started with fear number one. So the first one today comes from Mohammed. Thank you, Adrian, for the content. I'm facing a small issue. I'm a translator and I want to benefit from LinkedIn in that. But I'm also working as a medical technician and I don't know how to join both careers in LinkedIn. Please advise in that matter. Thank you very much. So this is only an example that I want to give here. What I mean by this fear is people don't really know how to transition from one experience in one sector that they have to translator, right? And there I always tell people, please don't think you have to make a strict cut, right? It's that the importance is that it's a fluid transition. If you are already like Mohammed, a medical technician, right? You can definitely use this knowledge to then market yourself as a medical technician translator, right? In this field of expertise. Because of course you're already an expert in that, so why wouldn't you use, unless you are really fed up with this industry and you want to switch completely. I understand, sometimes this happens, but I hear from people sometimes that they want to completely erase their LinkedIn and start fresh as a translator. You shouldn't do that, right? You can always make a connection somehow. If you go from medical technician to translator in your LinkedIn profile, yes, it looks quite extreme in the beginning, but you can always link it. You can always say, I'm a medical technician translator, right? And then in the next step, you can go back to all your previous business relationships in another field that you had, and you can tell them, you know, I'm reorienting myself. I'm now a translator in this field. So if you have content, please contact me, because they already know you. They already know you're an expert in the field. So Mohammed's fear is he doesn't know how to join both careers in LinkedIn. You can even leave both open. You know, you don't need to close one career on LinkedIn. You can leave medical technician until present and translator until present while you are still transitioning, right? The best way to combine them is just use the common links. So use the expertise in both ways. Next up, I just don't know what to specialize in. I feel like I'm not an expert in anything, marketing, legal, medical, etc. Is it even worth starting when I don't know what to specialize in? Specialization is a very common fear of freelancers, especially when starting out. It is like in every forum, on every Facebook post, in every LinkedIn group, I feel like it is so ingrained in people's minds that you need to specialize, you need to find your niche, etc., etc. And I'm here to tell you, please don't worry too much. It's not that important, honestly. You can start out as a generalist. Some people stay generalists forever, whether it's good or bad, that's besides the point. You can make it also without a specialization. The key part is to just start and things will happen, right? I'm specialized now in sports content, in sports retail, etc. And I never thought this would happen. It just happened naturally. You will just find your jobs and it will all fall into place. And so please don't hesitate starting out if you don't know what to specialize in, because you're missing out on so many valuable months already working on it, right? If you now say, let's say, oh, I'm gonna think about the next 3 months about my specialization, instead of starting now while thinking about it, you're already missing out on 3 valuable months. So specialization is important in a way, but it's by far not as important as people tend to try to hammer into people's minds. So don't worry about it too much if you're not. And by the way, I'm not an expert in anything marketing, legal, medical. These are just the big topics that people talk about, but you don't need to specialize in that, right? I'm sure you know more than the average person in something, whether it's sailing, whether it's climbing, whether it's chess, whether it's repairing a bicycle. There are so many things that we do on an everyday basis. Think about your hobbies. Think about what you do next to your work in your free time. Think about what series you watch. If you're a cinema freak and you go to the cinema all the time, why not become a media translator, a subtitler? You know, there's always something you know more than the majority of people know about, if you know what I mean. So don't sell yourself short if you're not a medical, legal, or what did you say, marketing translator. That's not important, right? These are just big topics. There are so many more different specializations you could work on. Let's look at Andrew's fear. Thanks for making this video. I personally find I struggle most with anxiety. Anxiety about the lack of stability, anxiety about emails, anxiety about workload and or my ability to manage the workload, anxiety about money, etc. And even anxiety about how all the anxiety is impacting my health. That's a lot of anxiety Andrew has, and I totally get it. I totally understand. You know, when I first started in 2016, I just really put all my eggs into one basket, and I worked absolutely crazy hours to make this work, right? And I don't recommend it, but sometimes in the beginning it's just needed. But I went too far, and beginning of 2018, I was very close, if not already in a burnout, and I totally get it. This is when anxiety started for me, and ever since I know now how to deal with it, but ever since then I've been struggling with it. And it's tough because it's mostly irrational, right? It's mostly irrational fears about things that haven't happened yet. So a lot of people are worrying about things about the future that they don't even know if it's going to happen. And that's a typical example Andrew is talking about. It can be that you have a lack of stability, but then it doesn't have to be. I don't think I have it, so it doesn't have to be that you have that. It can be that you will have a lot of emails and you will be anxious about, but it doesn't have to be until you know whether it is that case, right? And you can always do things about it, by the way. Once I realized that emails became too much for me to handle outside of work, I completely disconnected my phone from work, right? I don't get any work emails now on my phone, and it helped me so much. Because what can I really do if I'm out on my phone reading a work email? I can maybe respond to the client and say I'm not at the office at the moment, but what's the point, right? I would rather just have an absent out of office message, and whenever I'm not working, I'm not working. That's human nature. We need to relax. So there's so much you can do to reduce anxiety. Number one is definitely talk to people that do these things that you want to do, and to ask them how it is. Because whenever you have a role model or someone who does exactly what you want to do and you see them succeed, that helps you so much. In the beginning, that was huge for me. Once I moved to the Netherlands for my studies and I started as a freelance translator, I got introduced to so many people in the Netherlands actually doing what I wanted to do, and that helped me enormously. Anxiety about money, depending on where you live, you don't need to be anxious about money as a freelancer, because you can make way more than the average salary in a lot of countries, right? And especially in EU countries, as a freelance translator, you probably make more than as an employed translator. So just as a side mention there, if you make it and if you can actually stabilize your income, you have much more potential than employed translators, because they tend to be not that well paid in the EU. And the great thing about freelancing, the workload we are able to manage ourselves, right? Once you have kind of a stable clientele, you can tell them how much capacity you have. Now next Monday I'm going to take off because I need some break and there is a public holiday here. So I decided that myself, right? There is no one you have to ask. So the workload is actually much more manageable than if you aren't freelancing, if you know what I mean, because there you because here you are your own boss, so you can manage your workload on your own. So I hope that alleviates your anxiety a bit. It's not gonna go away totally. If you're really struggling that much with anxiety, you should consider seeking therapy, talking to someone. That helps a lot, because they can, there is still a stigma about psychotherapy, going to a psychologist, etc. It doesn't need to be that you have mental issues to go to a psychologist, right? It can just, therapy and training and coaching can help you in any kinds of business, especially you are starting out your own company. You have to realize what this actually means, right? It's a huge step. So if you need some guidance, that's perfectly normal. So don't feel bad about that. And I sense from your message that there is a lot of anxiety going on, a lot of over-worrying, overthinking. So it might be worth to explore the avenue of professional help here as well. Let's look at Lacuna's worry. I'm thinking about doing my Bachelor of Arts in Translation and Interpreting, but I'm very unsure. I'm worried about taxes, health insurance, and other insurances. Worried about how much demand there is for translators. If I do my bachelor's, I'd try to pass an exam, which I'd have to retake every 5 years, so that I can be a court translator in Germany. Now, there is a lot of overthinking, a lot of worrying again. She is, or he is, I'm not sure, already thinking about taxes and health insurance and other insurances before even starting a Bachelor in Translation. Doing a Bachelor in Translation doesn't mean at all that you will be a freelance translator, right? So many of my student friends that did the same university as me, they don't work as a translator now. Actually, the minority do. So don't think just because you are starting a Bachelor in Translation, you will actually work as a freelance translator. It can happen, and great if it's gonna happen, but it doesn't have to at all. So don't worry already about doing that. But it also tells me, that's also a positive sign when I read that you're already thinking ahead, right? Because the worst that you can do, what I did unfortunately, is doing a 3-4 years program, becoming a translator. You already know in the back of your head you want to go freelance, but you don't do anything about it. You're waiting for your degree to finish and then you're starting. That's the worst, right? If this person, Lacuna, is already thinking about taxes, that's probably already an indication that she or he wants to go freelance. So already start at the very beginning. Start building a network, start signing up with pros, start going to conferences, start joining virtual conferences like this one as well. All of these things will come in very handy later on. Taxes, health insurance and insurance, you will figure it out, especially you say you're in Germany, so there's a very nicely set up example of so many translators and freelancers out there that do it already. You don't have to worry too much about this stuff, right? You have taxes, health insurance in any possible position. Just because you're working for yourself, it becomes a bit more difficult because you have to deal with it yourself, but you can hire an accountant like I do, and I don't have to worry about at all about health insurance and taxes because this person does everything for me, right? Don't worry about these practical things. You will figure it out. That's really the least of the problems. How much demand there is, on the other hand, that is a legit question. You should ask yourself that before going down a career path, right? And there is kind of a twofold answer there, I would say, because whatever your perspective is, you can kind of, you can feed into that. You can say, every day there is more and more content. If you look at the content from this year compared to 2018, the difference is astronomical. It's insane how much more content there is produced in general. So there is definitely content for all of us. The demand is there, definitely. The question is whether the rise of technology, the rise of machine translation will decrease this demand. It will probably decrease it in a way that we know translation services, right? At the moment, it will probably change in a way in the next 10 years. I made a video about that on my YouTube channel, and it's quite polarizing in the comments. People disagree and people agree with me. It's called Will AI Steal Our Jobs? So you can go check it out if you want to. There I say that it's not there's no point in worrying about the future if our human minds can't even comprehend what this will mean, right? Because the technological advances at the moment are so incredibly vast and quick that we can't we can't even imagine in our minds where it's gonna go. So the only thing you can do is stay on top of the game, read about the advances, be interested in machine translation, interested in what's coming, and just go with the flow, go with the wave, stay on top so you don't drown. There will always be a demand for any kind of language professional. So if you are establishing yourself as a forward-thinking, progressive freelancer, you will be needed in any kind of capacity, whether it's a traditional translator, whether it's somehow a language consultant, a language optimizer. We don't even know yet the titles that will come into play there. But worrying whether there is demand in a language like German doesn't really make sense. There is definitely demand for a lot more people. Just depends on your expectations. Let's look at the last fear. I still think we have some time. Whatever I do, I just can't find any translation job. Why do I not find job? I need a job so bad, but all I try doesn't work. Please help me. How do I do what you do? This is by far the most asked question, or the most phrased fear I get in my comments all the time. And there I actually have kind of a mixed feeling towards the people that ask me these questions, because there's always almost like a bipolar situation happening in my audience. Because I make a lot of videos about, like websites like Fiverr and stuff, like these gig websites where you can make a quick buck with some side hustling things. I get a lot of audience from this side of the internet that just try to survive in the world, right? And then with the actual more freelancing and translation specific content, I get the actual professionals that want to make it as a profession and not as a gig. And these audiences clash sometimes, because I can't really cater to either one of them without excluding the other one, right? And I think this is a typical example of someone from the gig side that really needs money to survive and really just wants to have a few translation jobs to make a bit of money. And I think that these people will have it very hard to actually succeed in the industry, whereas the people that take it as a serious profession, that approach it in a very professional and serious creative manner, will have much more success. So if someone writes a comment like this, it kind of tells me that they haven't tried any kind of possible avenue that there is to explore, right? They probably just look up what they should do online. They sign up with ProZ, they wait, they sign up with Fiverr, with Upwork, and they wait and nothing happens. And that's not the way to go, right? There's so many more creative ways you can approach clients. You can build a network, you can build a portfolio. If you write this comment and you haven't built your own portfolio of volunteer translations, then that's already, you don't need to ask this question. You haven't put in the work yet, right? Make sure you train every day, you practice your craft every day, you talk to people on LinkedIn, on ProZ, on Facebook every day about the profession. You ask people to have video calls. Look up people that inspire you, that do the thing that you want to do in the future. Reach out to them, ask them if you can have a quick chat and include them into your network. Like this, you can build something sustainable. And at the same time, don't forget to sign up with all the platforms as well. That's also important. But building a network, building a portfolio on top of that is way more important than just signing up to all the platforms online that's possible. And then of course you need to market yourself smartly, right? If you have done 20 volunteer translations, that's already great experience, and you can build that into your LinkedIn, you can build that into your CV. So there are creative ways to start off. Of course it's hard, it's supposed to be hard. I say this all the time on my channel. If it wasn't hard, anyone would do it and then we would all be in trouble. So it's supposed to be hard to find jobs, but it does get much, much easier, I'm telling you. Once you found your first few clients, it will snowball into, recommendations will come in, people will recognize you. And just find a creative, unique way to stand out, right? If you manage to find, let's say, you manage to find something that's really interesting and you post this on LinkedIn twice a week. Let's say you have your own thing, maybe your own little video clip of something. You explain a specific word that is transformed, or let's say you are a French speaker and you take a word that is influenced from another language and that is now adapted by French speakers. And you explain this in a very short video, you put it on LinkedIn twice a week. you immediately come that this will generate traffic. This is an interesting idea, right? And people will recognize you. They will put you in connection with English and French, right? Maybe a French writer, French translator. And like this, you can build up a notoriety. And even without having any translation experience, you become kind of well known in the translation industry and people will recommend you. So you have to find another way than most people are doing it. If you want to be creative, if you want to stand out, that is the way to do it. And then next to that, of course, look for jobs on ProZ, look for jobs on LinkedIn, on Translators Cafe. There's so many places like this that you can look out for. Apply to agencies, look up agencies in countries that you want to expand to. Look up, what I often do as well, I go on social media and I look up keywords like expansion, for example, or opening when someone is expanding to a new country. Also look for keywords in your native language. If you want to look for expansion to France, then use the word for expansion in France, and you can see companies that open up a new office, a new fulfillment center in a specific country, and you can directly reach out to them and ask them if they need copy in French or in German, whatever, right? So these are ways that you can make it work. It's gonna be very hard, I know it, but keep trying, keep volunteering, keep building a portfolio, keep building a network, and be patient and be creative. It can definitely work. So, but I would never suggest to do it full time without anything else on the side if you haven't built up a clientele yet. So the best thing is to do it, like to keep your job that you have now part-time and start part-time building up a clientele. And once you can switch, you can quit the job and go full-time into freelancing. There you go. This was my session on addressing freelance fears. I hope this was interesting to you. I hope it made sense and was kind of relatable to your own fears as well. This is the kind of content I make on my YouTube channel. Once again, it's called the Freelanceverse. I would be very happy if you came over, and if you find the channel through this session, please let me know in the comments that you came from here. It's always interesting to know where people are coming from. And yeah, thanks so much. Enjoy the conference, enjoy the translation day. It's a very special day for us. It's important to value our language experts in the field because we are really truly connecting the world, and I think making it a better place by connecting different cultures and languages. So keep doing what you're doing, enjoy your day, and yeah, take care. Bye bye.